Hello, everyone. Thank you for checking out my tier list video. This is a kind of a special episode. If you are a returning viewer, you'll notice this is something that I haven't really done before, but I'm hoping you enjoy it. It's going to be more like podcast style listening. Now, if you're wondering where the Mew video is, I have not forgotten about it. I talked to Scott and he asked me to hold off on my video until after his race video is out, which is totally fair. I wouldn't want to do any spoilers, even mild spoilers, leading up into his video. So look forward to my video with my perspective from the race after his comes out. And by the way, next time you see a Scott's Thoughts video, make sure you like it and leave a comment from me because he has allowed me access to these beautiful move cards, which you see over here. I went in and edited a few, tried to do some editorial work, but this is mostly his work, his software to develop these. So huge shout out to Scott. Big thank you. We're going to have these on the screen throughout my whole video, adding a little bit of extra context or just reminding you if you've forgotten what some of the stats are for the moves. And with no further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Past David, and I hope you enjoy the podcast style video today. All right, let's get into the tier list. First of all, we've got Absorb. Absorb is 20 base power. It does offer a little bit of recovery, but Absorb is bad. It's useful in a niche way because it can help some Pokemon get past Brock, but it's not very good in the early game, and it's definitely not good after the early game. So I think it's right there in niche, and it's comfortable there. Next, we have Acid. You might think of this as the same kind of category as Absorb, but it's really not. At twice the base power, it's still only 40 base power, but it's got a chance for a defense drop, and the typing is actually pretty decent for the early game because poison types are neutral at hitting air, which is important for grass poison types, hitting early game Pidgeys and Spearows and that sort of thing. And it's also super effective against bug types. So I'm going to put Acid actually higher than you might think, not limited, but I'm going to put it at solid. It's even carried into the mid game on a lot of sets for Pokemon who learn Acid. And it's one of the it's got a physical attack typing. So it's actually one of these moves that some Pokemon use in combination with Sword Stance. So it's got more utility later on than you might think. Okay, let's skip a couple of the status ones. I want to come back to those when we talk about the badge boost glitch and what impact that has on Gen 1 mechanics. For now, let's go to Aurora Beam. Aurora Beam, I'm going to put at solid, actually just above Acid. Aurora Beam is not a move you want on your final set, but it is an excellent move for the early game, and it has a lot of PP. And it can even be useful in the mid game if you have to do training. So I'm going to put it in solid. I think it's very comfortable there. Ice typing is obviously a fantastic offensive typing. Next, let's go to Barrage. I'm going to put Barrage at limited. There is limited utility for Barrage. I would say it's a little bit more than niche because there are a number of Pokemon that would like a move like this to get past Brock. So if you don't have like a special attacking move, a multi-hitting move that's guaranteed to do at least 1 damage every time it hits can help some Pokemon like an Execute, for instance. If you had Barrage versus don't have Barrage, you could get through Brock faster. Next, on the topic of Brock, let's decide where we want to put Bide. Now, if you're familiar with the competitive scene, you're probably thinking this is like a totally useless move, like a very bad move. In Gen 1 solo running, it's actually quite good. You could put limited here. Maybe it's at the top of limited, but I think it's kind of too good to put in the limited category. I'm going to put it at the back end of solid, actually, because it is the best way for most water types and even some other Pokemon to get past Misty's Starmie, which is a significant threat early on, and also a good way for a lot of Pokemon to get past Lieutenant Surge with Raichu if they don't have a good way to damage it and knock it out quickly. So I'm going to put Bite at solid. It's solid in the early game as an option to take away key threats, and only situational outside of that. But I think it's just too strong in the situations that it's useful to put into the limited category. Next, I'm going to place Bite. Bite is not a dark type move in Gen 1, it's only a normal type move. That said, I think it has to kind of fit where Acid and Aurora Beam are. I would say it's probably just a touch worse than Acid, or just around where Acid is. I'm going to put it at worse just for now, and that's just because of the typing. That poison typing is pretty nice, and the Pokemon who learn Bite are often ones that are going to get a quick upgrade into Body Slam or have other better alternatives sooner rather than later, so Bite is not as often useful in solo runs as Acid is. Even though in a vacuum, it might look like Bite is the better move on paper. Another thing that I didn't mention about Acid is that it helps hit ghosts. That's important for some Pokemon as well, who don't get a lot of special options. Hitting ghosts with a physical move is pretty important, even though it's resisted. Okay, let's put Body Slam on here. Now, this is going to be no surprise to anyone with a little bit of familiarity with Body Slam, but this is a fantastic move. I am not going to actually place it in Broken, believe it or not, but I am going to put it in Must Use. And I think it is a must-use move for almost every Pokemon that learns it. 85 base power. Normal is a pretty good offensive typing and has a 30% to paralyze if you're slower than your opponent. That's a really impactful status. So yeah, not much more to say there. It's a must use for almost every Pokemon that gets the option. For a truly broken move in a speedrun, we need more base power than 85. What about 120? Blizzard is absolutely fantastic in Gen 1, has to be in the broken category because it's 90% accurate with 120 base power on a move that's an extremely good offensive typing. The best offensive typings in Gen 1 are Ice and Ground, so I don't see anywhere besides Broken to put Blizzard. Let's talk about Bubble. Bubble, you might think of in the same category as Absorb. I'm actually going to put it just below Absorb because I think the recovery Absorb gives you is just a little bit better than the potential for a speed drop. But now I'm changing my mind. I'm going to flip-flop them because Bubble hits for neutral damage against the early bug types and Absorb is resisted. Absorb really is just such a bad move. It's only potentially useful in the early game, and in the early game, almost everything resists the grass typing. So yeah, these are bad moves. These are only used in a niche scenario. Okay, I think I'm ready. Now that we've got a few moves down, I think it's time to talk about the badge boost glitch. I'm going to make this quick because I think many of you are probably already familiar with what the badge boost glitch is, but in Gen 1, the badge boost glitch is an incredibly important tool for speedrunners, especially the ones doing itemless speedruns like myself, Scott's Thoughts, J-Rose, etc., etc. It gives you reach that you wouldn't otherwise have, and it's almost like a baby Omni boost, right? So once you have the badges from different gym leaders that give you a boost, anytime you improve or even change your own stats, you're going to get a boost in all the other ones that you have a badge for. So that makes a move like Agility, which, I mean, Agility would almost be a useless category move. It would actually be a niche move if it wasn't for the badge boost glitch, because most of the Pokemon who learn Agility are already fast, and it raises your speed by 2 stages. So this would be so niche that it's almost useless if it wasn't for the badge boost. But I don't think there's a single badge boosting move that can go below the top of limited. It's still a very useful move, and a lot of Pokemon, even strong Pokemon, will want to use this as part of their late game set just to get 1 or 2 badge boosts to give them a little extra reach that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So with that as the backdrop, where do we put a move like Acid Armor? Acid Armor raises your defense by 2 stages, which is a useful move anyway. in a lot of cases. It's a good like defensive move, but then it's also badge boosting the rest of your stats. That goes from like a pretty solid move, like a pretty interesting solid move, to one that I would say has to be a must use move. I'm going to put it up here right around Body Slam. Barrier, by the way, does the same thing. So Barrier and Acid Armor, we're going to put in the must-use category. If your Pokemon learns one of those two moves, there's almost a 0% chance that you're going to pass up on using it unless you have another badge boosting option that's superior. Speaking of, I think there's one move here that demands our attention. And we need to move this. Where did I want to move that again? Okay, all right. Enough with the dad joke. We got that out of the way. This is the best move in the game. There's no other place to put Amnesia except at the very top of Broken. It's like Calm Mind ×2 and it badge boosts you. It's completely absurd. Any Pokemon who learns Amnesia is automatically going to be a pretty good Pokemon. Let's kind of just go through these sequentially again, and we'll hit some more badge boosting moves along the way. Bind, not to be confused with Bide, but Bind, I'm going to put in niche. Now, if it was just about winning fights, I think you'd probably want to put it in the limited category or maybe even in the solid category, because trapping moves in Gen 1 are incredibly powerful and it's 85% accurate. The reason it's in niche is because I'm going at this through the prism of a speed run, and it is a quite slow way to knock out opposing Pokemon. So it may be useful in a couple niche cases to sneak by at a lower level and save a little bit of time, but in general, it's going to be slowing you down to use a trapping move. Next, we have Bone Club. Bone Club, I think only Marowak and Cubone get. I'm going to put this as a limited move. It helps you get past Brock, but other than that, it's not super useful. It is better than Barrage, I think, so we'll put it here. But yeah, outside of that, you're going to get Dig soon, and then it's not really useful again. And then I'm going to put Niche at the back of, or Bone Ring at the back of Niche. Now, on paper, this is a much better move than like Absorb or Bubble or Bind or something. But the problem is, again, you're only getting this for like Marowak, and you already have Earthquake or Dig, which is just a better option. So it's hard to imagine a scenario where this would actually be useful. Maybe I'll even put it in useless. Hard to imagine you ever would even use it, because even for PP reasons, you have enough PP on Earthquake and Dig. I don't see this being a useful move to teach. Next is Bubble Beam. And this might surprise you where I'm going to put Bubble Beam, but I'm actually going to place this all the way up at must use. And I think it's a must use move because of how early you get the TM. Any Pokemon that can get Bubble Beam from Misty will almost always want to even take additional risk to fight Misty before Nugget Bridge just to get this move to speed up all the trainers on Nugget Bridge. Because having 60 PP, not PP, 65 base power, is it 60 or 65? I'll put it on the screen. Having a lot of base power for the early game just speeds up the whole early game, and it's got a lot of PP in order to get through those trainers as well, so you can skip some heals. Bubble Beam is incredibly powerful, and it's even useful later on for when you're fighting like the hikers and stuff like that, just to get quick knockouts. And yeah, it's just a very useful move until you have better options. Okay, next is Clamp. Clamp is a trapping move, and in later generations it falls off, but in Gen 1 it is a must-use move. I'm even going to put it above Body Slam. This thing is awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome effective power. If you've ever been on the receiving side of a Clamp from the Rival 5, Rival 6 champion fight, it's yeah, it's a powerful move. Even with Cloyster's suboptimal special, it's still such a good move that it's scary to face against. And if you're running Cloyster yourself or a Shelter, it's a must-use inclusion. All right, next is Comet Punch. This is another multi-hit move. I'm going to put it right next to Barrage. This has limited use. It's not the move you want to use in the early game, but it can be useful to get past early game threats. It's better than Tackle or something. And hitting multiple hits against Rock-type Pokemon gives you between 2 and 5 damage, even if it's only doing 1 damage per hit. So that's pretty good. Next is Confuse Ray. Now this is better than something like Supersonic because it's 100% accurate, but I have to put this in niche just because it's not the fastest way to knock Pokemon out. It can help you cheese your way through a fight or something potentially, but it's really not a move you want to use in a speedrun. Confusion is solid. We have to put this one right near Aurora Beam. I'm going to put it right after Aurora Beam. It's the same type of move as that. You get to do a pretty good amount of damage, especially for an early game move, or you can use it in the mid game to clean up some poison types, stuff like that, save a little bit of PP. Maybe you don't have to use Psychic. You can use Confusion instead and get a knockout. Just a good solid move, but not something you want on your final learn set. Constrict is next, and if you've played against Erica, you know how bad Constrict is. And if you tried running Tangela, then you really know how bad Constrict is. Constrict is awful. You're better off using Struggle. This is going in useless. Next is Conversion. Conversion, I believe only Porygon learns it. But I'm going to put this in Limited, probably just behind Agility. It might be more useful than you think. It really helps Porygon get past Brock, and it could be potentially useful in some other niche scenarios as well. So yeah, while Limited, it's a really cool ability. This is also a move that, like, okay, if you had 5 or 6 move slots, you'd actually just love to keep it on for different times throughout the playthrough, but it is limited its effectiveness, and that's why eventually you're probably going to have to override it. Next up is Crabhammer, and I think Crabhammer has to go up here next to Blizzard. It's imperfectly accurate. It's only, I believe, 85% accurate, but guaranteed crit mechanics in Gen 1 if you have a base speed over 65 is just, or maybe it's over 64, just incredible. Crabhammer is an awesome move. It's a shame that well, I don't know, I was gonna say it's a shame more Pokemon don't get it, but it is pretty cool that that's Kingler's special move. Even with Kingler's poor special, it's still an amazing move. Okay, Defense Curl. Here we could put it near Agility, but the base usage of Defense Curl, adding defense, is better than adding speed, because then you can tank more hits and keep badge boosting. So I think we have to move that up from Limited to just Solid. If you learn Defense Curl, you pretty much need to teach it. I'm even between must use and Solid. I'm going to put it at the top of Solid, because I think for most Pokemon who learn Defense Curl, it's going to be useful to carry this on the set for at least a pretty extended period of the game. Next is Dig. And this is better than Body Slam. It's a must-use move, and there's not a lot more to say about it. It's a 2-turn Earthquake, and you get it really early in the game. There's even an argument to be made that it's broken, but I think for now I'm going to put it in must-use. Next, we have Disable. This is just an awful move. The argument to be made for putting it in niche is that there is a weird interaction that can happen where in yellow specifically, you can use Disable on Onix while it's using Bide. Disable Bide, put the Onix to sleep. Brock won't use a full heal. And if you get lucky with Disable, because it picks randomly which move it's disabling. If you get like the 25% chance that it disables Bide, and then you get him to fall asleep, you can get Onix stuck for like forever. Stuck in Bide, and you can just wail away and get a free win. But this is so niche that I'm actually putting it at the top of useless. Like, I think we have to put a caveat on niche, like it has to be useful at least like, I don't know, 5% of the time to be considered useful. Because if we're playing the game, can any move be useful? I think the answer is yes. We could grab self-destruct. Where's self-destruct? Let's put self-destruct up here. We could grab self-destruct and say, hey, this is useful in a niche scenario because sometimes there's a glitch with mimic where you want to overwrite your mimicked move with a new move and then you get to teach mimic again. Like we could go down that rabbit hole if we want, but no. Self-destruct is completely useless because we're playing a solo challenge speed run, and self-destruct is like a forced reset. So yeah, disable falls on that. It's that bad that I'm going to put it in the useless category. Next is Dizzy Punch. Dizzy Punch is fun, but I'm also going to put it in useless. And the only reason is because it's a signature move and Kangaskhan has better options by then. By the time you get to the level where you would want Dizzy Punch, it's already completely useless. You have Body Slam, Double Edge, whatever you want instead. Speaking of Double Edge, this is a move that gives you recoil. So some people really don't like taking recoil damage. I don't love it. It does slow you down because it makes it harder to win fights, but also you have to like open up your bag and use a super potion or something to heal yourself if you're using it a lot. That said, I'm actually going to put it into solid. I think this is a very good tool for a lot of Pokemon to use, especially Pokemon who don't get Body Slam. But some Pokemon like Farfetch'd, like normal type Pokemon, can use Double Edge just as their reach. So Body Slam is 85 base power. Double Edge is 100 base power. Sometimes that extra 15 base power saves you from leveling up a couple extra times, saves you a bunch of time in a speed run. So yeah, I think Double Edge is a good move. It's a solid move. Sometimes it's even on your late game set. Sometimes it's just good for the mid game for Pokemon to like knock out frail psychic types, that sort of thing. But it's a good move. It's a solid move. I'm going to put it here near the top of solid. All right, next is Double Kick, and I'm going to put Double Kick at the top of limited because while it is limited, it's a great option for some Pokemon to get past Brock in the early game. I'm thinking of like Nidoking and Nidoqueen. I'm thinking of Hitmonlee starting with Double Kick. It's actually quite a good early game move. I think while limited, you don't want to take this later on in the game, and there's lots of fighting type is just not very good throughout most of the playthrough. It does have its uses, and it's quite nice in the early game. Oh boy, Double Slap. The only Pokemon that get this, that really use it, are like the fairy type ones, like there's no fairy type Pokemon in Gen 1, but you know what I mean? Like Clefairy, Clefable, Wigglytuff, like these type of Pokemon that look like they would be fairy type Pokemon, they're the ones that get Double Slap. So they're not usually hitting very hard. I think Poliwag actually also learns it, but yeah, it's not very good. This has to go actually worse than Comet Punch and Barrage. I'm going to put it at the top of niche because it's also low on PP. So we're going to put double slap down here. Only 10 PP is just so bad. Like, even though it hits multiple times, you think that might be a good thing against Brock or a Geodude, you run out of PP on it and then you have to switch to something else. It's just a liability. It's not a good option. Okay, this next one is tough to rank. Let's talk about Double Team. I have to admit, Double Team is the move out of all these moves that I have almost the least experience with. Now, some of the signature moves, I guess, I've technically used fewer times, but Double Team is banned on my personal playthroughs, and Scott has banned it too, except for like a couple niche scenarios. And I believe J-Rose too. Most people don't allow this move because not only of how strong it is, but also how boring it makes the playthrough. I actually don't think it's as good as Amnesia. I don't think it's the best move in the game. So it's not banned because it's the very best move. It's banned because of kind of how miserable it makes the playthrough. It becomes like, okay, you just use double team to get past every threat. It badge boosts you and increases your evasion. So it makes you very strong, but it's kind of slow-ish to do. So I'm not even sure if it deserves to be ahead of something like Blizzard and Craphammer. Maybe it even deserves to be at the bottom edge of broken. I don't think it's like, it's not game-breakingly good as far as what you could do with a really fast Pokemon. So like if you're running a Zapdos or an Articuno, you're running a Charizard, yeah, you could teach it the TM for double team, but you really don't need to. Like those Pokemon are going to do better with just their other tools, or at least not benefit from it very much. However, double team really becomes important when you're something like a Pidgey. It'll allow you to use a really bad Pokemon and just cheese the game with it at a low level. So double team is either the absolute best move in the game if you're playing with a bad Pokemon that can learn it, or it's maybe not even in must use. Maybe it's in solid if you're a really good Pokemon and you just have better options. Like Charizard would rather use Swords Dance than double team. So I think kind of splitting the difference between these, I think it is too good not to be in broken, but it's not the absolute best move. You would rather have something like Amnesia or Swords Dance, so I'm going to leave double team here. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and grab Swords Dance. Since I was speaking of it, Swords Dance is, in my opinion, the second best move. And so I'm going to go ahead and move that behind Amnesia. Increasing your attack by 2 stages is absolutely wildly strong. It also boosts like your speed and your other categories with the badge boost glitch. It's the only reason it's worse than Amnesia is because Amnesia boosts a combined special stat of special defense and special offense. So that's the only reason it's better than Swords Dance, but these are both in a category better than everything else. Okay, next move is Dragon Rage. I'm going to put this as limited. Bottom of limited. I know in Red and Blue, and I'm going to try to make this tier all for Gen 1, even though most of my experience is for Yellow. Like Gyarados starts with Dragon Rage, and that's a very good option for it. If you start with the move, you can one-hit most stuff in the early game up until a certain point. So I'm going to put it as limited. Obviously, it falls off hard. In the mid game, it's not very useful. In the late game, it's totally useless. Next is Dream Eater. I don't really see this move being very useful. There's an argument to be made to put it in useless. All the Pokemon that can use Hypnosis would rather probably just use Psychic than Dream Eater. You don't really need recovery for most Psychic Pokemon either. So I haven't come across a scenario where it's useful yet. But I could hypothetically see it being useful, unlike some of these other moves like Dizzy Punch. So I'm going to keep Dream Eater here. Next is Drill Peck, and that is a great move. I think we need to put that right near Body Slam. I think just after Body Slam is the right place to put this. Any flying type is going to want to have Drill Peck on its set. I can't even think of a reason why you wouldn't have Drill Peck if you can learn it. Earthquake. Earthquake is better than Dig, but only just barely. It's a 1-turn dig instead of a 2-turn dig. I think it belongs right there. Next is Egg Bomb. And I can't remember what its base power is. Pause. We're going to find out together. This is how rare this move is. I didn't do research before this, by the way. I just play a lot of Gen 1. And so I thought I was ready to talk off the cuff about all this. Okay, 100 power, normal move with 75 accuracy. 75 accuracy is pretty bad. So it's basically, I guess you could compare it to Double Edge. Double Edge, you're taking recoil, it's 100 base power. Egg Bomb, you're not taking recoil, but it's only 75% accurate. I'd say it's probably worse than that. I'm going to put it actually down here at limited. Because while I do like the base power, yeah, hard to see when you would actually use this. I'm going to put it actually down here. Because, like, I know you would use it with Chansey potentially, but Chansey, its attack is just so low that you want to use special moves anyway in Gen 1. Remember, in Gen 1, it actually has good special attack. So, yeah. Even if you're up against a psychic type, it's better to use special moves with a Chansey than physical moves. So, hard to see where that would ever slot in, where that would be useful. Okay, next is Ember. And I think Ember deserves to be up here. Might surprise you because it's low base power, but Ember's really good in the early game. It's really good against the bug types and super effective against grass types as well. So it's really good in the early game. I'd say it's solid. Fire types in Gen 1 tend to have Ember longer than they want to because a lot of them don't ever learn Flamethrower. If they do learn Flamethrower, it's at a high level. So a lot of them are going from Ember, holding on to it for a long time, and then teaching Fire Blast after beating Blaine. So you don't love when you're running fire types often how long you have to hold on to Ember. But I think for an early game move, it's one of the better ones out there. Okay, Explosion goes down here for obvious reasons. And let's place Fire Blast. Fire Blast is not as good as Blizzard for a few reasons. Now, it has the same base power, but it's a little bit less accurate at 85% accurate. And while it has a burn chance, that's not as good as having a freeze chance. So I'm going to put Fire Blast right here next to Earthquake and Dig. It's a very, very good move. And it's a must use if you're a fire type. But yeah, it's not as broken as something like Blizzard is. Okay, Fire Punch goes down in solid. I think this is self-explanatory. It deserves a place near Aurora Beam and Confusion. And Fire Spin is an interesting one. Now, trapping moves in Gen 1 are very powerful, but 70 accuracy is really not a lot of accuracy. I think this one has to go somewhere around here. I'm going to put it just behind Agility. In the limited category, yes, it can be useful sometimes, but no, it's not a very good move, and it's not one that you want to use often. Fissure. All right, here, now we're getting to the fun stuff. Now we get to talk about something fun, and it's one-hit KO moves. I'll let you think about this for a second while I take a refreshing sip of my iced latte. Yeah, and spilled on my face too. That's good. That's good. Okay. I am a believer in one-hit KO moves. I love using one-hit KO moves. Now, I understand that you want consistency. And consistency is pretty important in a speedrun too. But you know what's faster than being consistent? Knocking things out in one move. When it works, it feels so good. Like, chef's kiss to use one-hit KO moves. I'm not going to say it's a must-use move. It's definitely not. It's not must-use, but I am a big believer in Fissure. I'm going to move it to the top of solid. There you go. Any big threat like the Champion's Executor, the Champion's Sandslash, any really strong late game Pokemon that are giving your Pokemon a problem, if you learn Fissure, you can one-hit KO them. Sometimes you use it for Lorelei. Like if you're a ground type and you want to one-hit KO the Cloyster, the Lapras. Now, I will say there's a caveat here. You really don't want to use it on Lapras that much because the earlier on in the fight you use Fissure, the better. Like you would rather use it on a Dugong or a Cloyster at the beginning of Lorelei's team than Lapras at the end, because not every reset is created equal. If you have a reset at the very beginning on the first Pokemon, it's not that big of a deal. If you have If you have to use Fissure on the last Pokemon on a team and you miss, then that's a very painful reset. So I would never say that Fissure is a must-use move. Now, maybe for some Pokemon it is to get like optimal times, but there are also lots of Pokemon that can learn Fissure and just won't use it. So I'm going to leave it there at solid. Next is Flamethrower. Now, we haven't gone through these moves yet, like Flamethrower and Ice Beam and Thunderbolt. This is our first one. And I think this one has to be considered on the same power level as something like a Body Slam. And I'm going to put it just above Body Slam because the special nature of it is really useful, especially against something like, a Koga. The later you get into the game, the more important it is to have good special moves that can handle different types of threats. Flamethrower hitting for neutral damage against the rival's Cloyster as well. Again, I'm thinking of this mostly through a yellow prism, but yeah, Flamethrower is a really good move. Flash is, I haven't found a use for it yet, although I could see it being useful one day. No, I'm going to put it in useless. And the problem is that if you use Flash, you can't override it. It's an HM. So yeah, no, I can't see that ever being worth it. I could see how you might want to use it for like a fight or something, but you're never going to want to use it if you can't override it later. So I'm going to put Flash down here in useless. Next, we have Fly. This is the second best flying type move in Gen 1 behind Drill Peck. However, it is quite a bit worse than Drill Peck. Drill Peck is 80 base power and it's a 1-turn move. Fly is 70 base power. It's a 2-turn move, so it's a little bit slower, and it's only 95% accurate. I think we have to consider this. I'm going to put it right here between Double Edge and Fire Punch. Now, the reason I'm putting it around this area here is because it still is the best flying type that many Pokemon get access to. Not every flying type gets Drill Peck. Those who don't, Fly is still solid. It's a decent option for those Pokemon. Okay, Focus Energy. The question is, do we put this in niche or useless? I'm going to put it at the very bottom of niche. It's so bad. It's so bad. So for those who don't know, Focus Energy is supposed to increase your critical hit chance, but instead it reduces your critical hit chance in Gen 1 because of a bug. So the use case for using this is actually, it's actually when you're using badge boosting moves and you don't want to get a crit. So when you get a crit in Gen 1, sometimes it hurts you. Like if you're using Sword Stance to increase your attack and your attack has gone up 6 stages, but then you hit and you crit, it bypasses that and you do only as much as a crit would normally do if you didn't have any setup. So Focus Energy can reduce your chances to crit and thereby increase your chances of hitting with your badge boosting move. So if you, or your stage rising move. So if you use 3 Sword Stances and Focus Energy, you're much less likely to get an unlucky critical hit. That said, because it's useless as a standalone move, you have to pair it with something like Sword Stance or Amnesia for it to be useful. It would take up already half of your learn set if you're dedicating Focus Energy and Sword Stance to your set. It's just, I haven't used it yet. I could see how it could be useful, but it's hard to imagine it being useful very often. So I'm going to put it at the bottom of niche. All right, next is Fury Attack. It belongs in here with all the other multi-hit moves. And I'm going to put Fury Swipes there as well. Okay, Glare. Glare, being able to paralyze the opponent Pokemon. This is a limited usefulness. Again, I'm going to put this, and it's slow too. You know what? I'm going to put this at the top of niche. On paper, it seems like it would be good, but I think in reality, it's just not how you want to play a speed run. You very rarely want to paralyze your opponent. Similarly, Growl is going to go in niche. You might think this is useless because, okay, let's be honest, Growl's not a very good move. But I think Growl is useful against Brock often enough so that I'm going to put it near the top of Niche. When you don't have better options and when you need something to stall out the bide counter, Growl is pretty good. Okay, Growth is an interesting one. So Growth is like Calm Mind. Growth raises your special attack and your special defense because it's a unified stat. It raises your special and it badge boosts you. I think Growth has to be in the broken category. And the only reason it's not higher is because most of the Pokemon who learn Growth also can get Sword Stance, and they'll just use Sword Stance instead. So it's not utilized that much, but it is incredibly powerful. Next is Guillotine. Guillotine is a one-hit KO move. It's just like Fissure, except it hits for normal damage. So Guillotine cannot hit ghosts, but Fissure can't hit flying. So I think the nod goes to Guillotine over Fissure. The reason is Gyarados is a late game threat that you would often want to Guillotine, whereas you would very rarely, if never, want to use Fissure on the ghost type Pokemon that Agatha has, because if you get access to Fissure, you probably also have access to Earthquake, and you can one-hit KO with 100% accuracy instead of 30% accuracy. So I give the nod to Guillotine over Fissure, although, of course, in most situations, these are exactly the same move. Okay, next is Gust, which is a normal type in Gen 1. It's not a good move, but it is a move you can use. And I think it goes at the back of Limited just because it's a low base power tackle type move. It's some Pokemon's only fighting option for a while, so some Pokemon are going to use this. Next is Harden, and this is just like Defense Curl, so we're going to put it here. Haze. Haze is useless. I'm not talking more about that. Next up is Headbutt. Headbutt is actually a really good move. Some people like Snowy, I think, prefer Headbutt to Body Slam, but that's more of a Gen 2 mentality. I think in Gen 1, the extra base power is better, but Headbutt with the chance to flinch if you're faster than them is very strong. It's lower base power than Drill Peck, but it has a better secondary effect. It's quite close. I'm going to put Headbutt just behind Body Slam. If Body Slam was not a TM in Gen 1 and instead it was Headbutt, almost every Pokemon that uses Body Slam would be using Headbutt as a replacement instead. It's a very, very good move. All right, next we have High Jump Kick. High Jump Kick is the best fighting type move in Gen 1. Only Hitmonlee gets it. It is a must-use move, and I'm going to put that here, actually, in between Headbutt and Body Slam. And the reason for that is that I'd say it's up there with Flamethrower and Body Slam in usefulness, but it's only 95% accurate. However, if you're a fighting type and you get High Jump Kick, you're ecstatic because none of the other fighting types have good fighting options. This is just a very, very good move for a solo run. Okay, next up is Horn Attack. This is the normal equivalent of like an Aurora Beam or a Confusion. This is a very good like mid-game, early game option. High PP. Yeah, it's just nice for getting through stuff. Okay, Horn Drill and Guillotine are the same move. Next up is Hydro Pump. Where do we put Hydro Pump? We know that Surf is going to be right around Flamethrower, and so is Thunderbolt, and so is Ice Beam. They're all going to be in that kind of area in the must-use category. The question is Hydro Pump with higher base power but lower accuracy, only 80% accuracy, is it better or worse than Surf? And that sort of move. You know, it's a really hard call. And a lot of it is contextual, but this is the category we live in. It's right here. It's right here near Flamethrower. Depending on the Pokemon you're running, It's either better or worse. If you're a Lapras and you don't have any badge boosting options, Hydro Pump is better. If you're a Blastoise and you have Withdrawal, which is a way to badge boost your special if you need it in the late game, then Surf is better because you can Surf. You can get that extra range, that extra damage. You can get it through other means. If you don't have that option, Hydro Pump is better. I am a personal believer in Hydro Pump. I really love this move. I'm going to put it as a must-use move for most Pokemon who learn Hydro Pump. Next is Hyper Beam, and this one was a tough one to place because there's a question as to whether or not we're talking about Hyper Beam like we obtain it through the TM, or if we learn it naturally. If we learn it naturally, this is up here with Blizzard. And I'm going to rank it as such. However, if any of these moves were as hard to get as Hyper Beam was, they'd all be down here in the niche to useless category. Because if you don't get it naturally on your learn set, like a Gyarados, and you have to like pick up a lot of items and then sell those items and then buy coins 50 at a time from the Rocket Game Corner to afford the TM for Hyper Beam, that's just never going to be worth it in a speed run. So I'm going to assume that this Hyper Beam is like, okay, we're a Dragonite or a Gyarados or something and we learn it naturally. If you learn it naturally, it's great. It's up there with Blizzard. It's 150 base power, 90% accurate. It's an amazing move. Okay, Hyper Fang, the signature move for Eradicate. That is a must-use move, and I'm going to put it here near Drill Peck. Maybe just after Drill Peck. It's a really strong base power, and you get it really early. So, yeah, not much to add to that, but Hyper Fang is a very good move. Okay, somehow we've gotten through all these moves and we haven't gotten to a sleep-inducing move yet. This is Scott's favorite move. Shout out to Scott's Thoughts. Hypnosis. Is Hypnosis good or bad in a speed run? That's the question. Okay, reasons why it's bad in a speed run. It's only 60% accurate. It's slow. It takes a turn to do it. If you fail, then it's even slower. You have to do it again. Reasons why it's good in a speed run. If you have a badge boosting move and you put your opponent to sleep, it gives you free turns to set up. Other reasons it's good in a speed run. It helps you beat Pokemon and trainers at a lower level than you'd be able to otherwise. So how do we kind of balance out these two ideas? Well, with the benefit of experience, I can tell you that Hypnosis is an incredible move. Sleep-inducing moves are only worse than the best moves in the game, the absolute best moves in the game. Amnesia and Swords Dance are better, but Hypnosis is probably right after that. And you know what? I think we have Growth too far down. I think Growth needs to be here. And Double Team needs to be here. Yep. I think this is the right order. But definitely Hypnosis is better than moves like Blizzard or Hyper Beam. As much as Blizzard and Hyper Beam can help with that extra range, there's nothing like putting your opponent to sleep for multiple turns and giving you time to set up or just time to knock them out directly. Okay, Ice Beam. Ice Beam is great. Ice Beam is right there with Dig and Earthquake. I'm going to put it in between them, actually, just for fun. Because it's hard to differentiate. It's, it's a little lower base power than Dig, so I'm going to put it here, just above Hydro Pump. The chance to freeze is nice, too. Ice Punch, we're going to put that... It's better than Aurora Beam, isn't it? Yeah, because I think it has a chance to freeze. let's put it over here near Drill Peck, Hyper Fang, and Bubble Beam. I think that's pretty fair. Okay, Jump Kick. Jump Kick is really good, but it's not as good as High Jump Kick, so I'm going to put it up in the solid territory. This is a very good move, and more fighting types wish they had access to it than Hitmonlee. Karate Chop. This is listed as a fighting type move here, but in Gen 1, it's only a normal type move. However, it is a high crit move, so this is quite good. Quite good. It's close to Body Slam as far as effective power. I'm going to put it, because it doesn't have a secondary effect, right near Drill Peck, just behind Headbutt. Actually, maybe just behind Drill Peck, because you can't pair Karate Chop with a badge boosting move. It's kind of on its own. So I'm going to put it here. Okay, next is Kinesis. This is very niche. I don't even know if it's useful, but I'm going to put it at niche because I could see it potentially being useful. Leech Life. Leech Life is only 20 base power, so you might think it belongs down here near Absorb, but actually, I can't believe I'm saying this, actually, it's solid. It's Parasek's second best move behind, no, third best move. It's his third best move, but it's actually its best attacking move. Behind Spore and Sword Stance, obviously it's his third best move. Leech Life is only 20 base power, but the bug typing is incredible offensively in Gen 1. It's super effective against Psychic, it's super effective against Poison, it's super effective against Grass. So that means every Grass Poison type you run up against, which there's a lot of them in the early game, a lot of Oddish and that sort of thing, you're hitting for 4 times damage, so it's effectively 80 base power with recovery. Leech Life is actually, yeah, it's funny, but it's solid. So if you're a bug type and you're getting Stab, you're hitting with 120 effective base power against a Grass Poison type and 60 effective base power against poison types, and you're getting recovery off of it. So yeah, pretty good. Leech Life is pretty good. Okay, next is Leech Seed. Leech Seed is, you'd think maybe useless for a speed run, but not totally useless, because sometimes it helps you get past Brock. In the case that you are an Ivysaur or a Bulbasaur, it is what you do to get past Brock, and can be useful a couple other times in the early game. I think I'm actually going to move it up here because I have used it, so it's not so niche that it's stretched to imagine using it. It's actually definitely a useful move on occasion. I think we're going to do just a couple more here, and then we're going to take a break. So I'm going to put Leer down. Leer is just like Growl, but better than Growl. So let's put it at the top of niche, because it's good against the Onyx and the Geodude that Brock has early on. And then the last move that we'll rank for now before I take a short break is Lick. Lick is a funny move because actually, for such a low base power move, there are Pokemon that mimic it in order to deal with Agatha. While it's quite funny, that's actually one of the benefits of using Mimic and not having Lick vanilla on your base set. I think just having it on your base set is pretty useless. I'd say it's only used for like PP management for the Ghastly line when they've nightshaded something down to low health and they use Lick to finish it. It's never really the main option or one you're excited about using. It's really just for a couple extra PP here and there. So we're going to put Lick at niche, and I'm going to take a short break before coming back to finish these off.